It's time for Clemson Sports Talk with Lawton Swan.
Ready, set!
Just call me Swanee.
Tiger style. Tiger style.
Finally, Clemson Sports Talk has come back to Drive Time. Hello, everybody. Lawton Swan back in the saddle once again. It is the show that shakes the Southland. Clemson Sports Talk for you each and every afternoon as you make your way around the great state of South Carolina and beyond, listening to us on incredible radio stations like Fox Sports Radio 1400 in the Midlands around the world, on the iHeart radio application. Download it today. It is free. You can also listen to the podcast on your favorite podcast player. And again, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'd love to have you do that. One easy way to get there, tinyurl.com/Clemson Sports TV. That should do the trick. Would love to have you join us over there and hit that subscribe, ring that bell. That way when we go live, you know it. All right, so a couple of topics to get into here today, including a trip to the plains of Auburn. We'll also talk a little NIL and the impact, again, that it is having on the world of college football. Plus, Clemson Tom set to join us in hour number 2. But we begin with the NIL again. So a couple of days ago, we played the audio here on the program of Texas A&M head coach Jimbo Fisher being frustrated at the insinuation that perhaps Aggie Nation was in some ways responsible for the number 1 recruiting class in the country. And I get it. You don't want your brand besmirched. You don't want to feel as if you, like for Fisher, if indeed the results of their top-rated class, which some have argued may be the best class ever put together, if indeed it came down to the NIL situation and money for the players, then it does take away from what you went out and did, right? Like it's not necessarily a quote pay-for-play scenario, but it's not as if you were A&M with 4 losses or however many they had this year. I think they ended the season 8-4 because they didn't get to play that Tax Slayer Gator Bowl against Wake Forest. But if you were A&M and the belief is that you didn't land these recruits off of the merit of your recruiting or off the merit of your program, but more so off of the merit of your pocketbook, it's not necessarily a slap in the face, but it's certainly not a pat on the back either. And Jimbo Fisher lashed out about it and was pretty perturbed that there were conversations about a $30 million fund for these players to come in. I said here on the show, like, I wouldn't put it past Jimbo Fisher to organize things like that. Like, in his tenure, he has not given me a reason to think that he would do things on the up and up. Now, I would actually trust Aggie fans more than Jimbo Fisher. That's neither here nor there for this conversation. But the thing that I think we are really dealing with comes down to the NIL, schools that have little to no guidance from the NCAA and what they are deciding to do or how they are deciding to broker deals, perhaps even for players who come to said programs. And that is not how it's supposed to work. But because there aren't really any guidelines per se, not deep level guidelines, teams are trying to navigate this and figure it out and skirt by as closely to the line as possible. Some probably crossing the line because that's inherently what happens in the world of recruiting in college football. You've got people that will get right up to the edge You've got some people that would just step right on over the line. And I think with NIL, it's certainly added to that because now things that some schools may have done in the background previously can maneuver some of those funding assets to the foreground and try to enhance, what you can, or the type of players you can bring in the following year, because these deals can become sort of public record. And so, like we said a while back, like I talked about, if you are the quarterback at Clemson and let's say DJ Uiagalelei gets a deal with, I'm making up some name, it probably does exist, Piedmont Motor Company, and he's their billboard guy all across the upstate. Then if you are Cade Klubnik, you probably recognize that when DJ's time is done, your face is going to be up there. Now, there's a difference in that recognition, which I'm sure schools love to get, and saying to a guy when they come to campus, hey, you can be the next billboard guy here. Like that is the thing that you are not supposed to be able to do given the way the NIL is set up. You should not be able to entice people to sign with your school by virtue of what they can get from the NIL. What I think is going to have to happen, and I think for NIL and players and teams, it's got to be sooner rather than later, is the NCAA's got to come out with some guidelines on this. They've got to create something, and I'll give you a couple of reasons. I know the NCAA is weak sauce when it comes down to taking care of business, but I think this is a twofold problem. 803-450-0086. Give us your thoughts on it. First problem with the way this is currently structured is that we really don't have any hard, fast, no-brainer rules in place. It's just sort of, here's the NIL. It was like the NCAA gave it out as an option, like, here you go, boys, here's how it works. The schools, you can't pay them directly. You're not supposed to help them. Good luck. And that's kind of where this all begins. And that's why we sort of are sitting here several months into it, still going, man, what are the rulings? How is this stuff going to be handled? The other adverse consequence of the NIL that I think is going to be a major problem at some point, and I know that some of the guys who get money from NIL deals will probably fall in line with this exact next group I'm about to bring up, but that is the players who for years drove maybe better cars than everybody on campus, who maybe had better clothes, on and on and on, all the things that players have had for a long time. Now, there's always been this underlying thought that, well, I'm sure they're being that $500 handshake, that whole ordeal. I'm sure they're taking care of. They're college football players, for crying out loud. But what was tough to mask then was where the revenue stream came from, because there wasn't NIL. So if you had a player who was just from, just family, just didn't have much, and all of a sudden he's at University X driving a brand new Z28 or whatever the car was 10, 20 years ago, tinted windows, big rims, all the everything that you could put into a vehicle, speakers, sound system, neon lights. I mean, all of that. Just ridiculous stuff that nobody would typically put on a car. Well, prior to the NIL, that kid stood out a little bit on campus by comparison to his contemporaries on the football team. But not now. I mean, I think another negative byproduct of the NIL is the fact that players who get paid under the table aren't as easily caught because there's this unknown of, well, maybe they've just got NIL money. And to me, that should probably bother people as much as anything, even if it's a guy that makes NIL money. Even if you're a guy that people believe like Caleb Williams, who is leaving Oklahoma to go to Southern Cal to play with his former head coach Lincoln Riley, many people think he'll have at least a 7-figure deal of some sort. But how do you know if a guy's got a 7-figure deal and somebody else wants to slip in more money? How do you know that he's been given additional money? Like, it is much more difficult to tell, because if you've got $1 million of it that's out in the public and everybody knows that, then if somebody else gives you $20,000 under the table, that's pretty much hidden. It's not like you're going to be rolling up buying new things and somebody's going to say, oh, well, you know what? I saw Swinney the other day out buying some new stuff. That's pretty suspicious. Of course, it's not suspicious if I've already got $1 million deal that you know about. So I think there's also this possibility that players who are getting NIL and players who aren't getting NIL could be funneled money in a different way that would not necessarily be as noticeable as it once was. 803-450-0086. And then the other side of the NIL happening when it did is that the ability for players to move, this transfer portal, without any consequence. I mean, you literally had Caleb Williams pull a free agent job to go play with his ex-head coach. Now, his father, Carl, in an article on ESPN.com, said that they were talking about making sure their son's equipped for the NFL, not the NIL, and that the NIL is not the reason that he would leave Oklahoma to go to Southern Cal. It's really about getting ready for the professional level under Lincoln Riley. And I think everybody who has followed Lincoln Riley's career and knows the guru that he is with quarterbacks, to leave Oklahoma to go to Southern Cal is not something that is just completely out of bounds by any means, given the fact that Lincoln Riley is being charged with returning that program to its prominence of yesteryear. But for the players to be able to jump in the portal and do this, it has altered college football. It's altered it. And I don't know that it's altered it for the good. Now, they interviewed several different, not just athletic directors, but several different coaches for this article on ESPN.com. And one of the things that stood out to me just reading over it is the fact that maybe the coaches aren't nearly as upset about it as I am, but and maybe I wouldn't be. Maybe my problem with being upset is that there just aren't enough guidelines in place. But you take a look at some of the things that these coaches did say, who were interviewed about it with ESPN. For example, Wake Forest head coach Dave Clawson stressed that he's not critical of NIL. He's happy players can make money off their talents, but he sees a clear lack of guidance on what schools should be doing. Clawson went on to say there's a growing sentiment that right now it's a free-for-all out there between tampering, the transfer portal, and what's considered a legal NIL deal and what isn't permitted. That news sort of piggybacking off of what we were saying earlier, like, it's not that coaches don't want these players to be able to benefit. I think that's something that's changed now that the coaches are making so much money. But it's really about as a staff, as a program, as a conference, and as I guess what's the next level? An association. As the NCAA goes, they just want to see some general guidelines that could really help stop some of the things that have happened or potentially will happen in the future, because we really don't have like a playbook. 803-450-0086. Pat Fitzgerald, head coach of Northwestern, said, quote, "Where exactly is the NCAA going? What is this going to look like in a few years? There's so many questions. Is it going to make the game better? Will it make the experience for the players better?" He said, "I'm not sure anyone knows where we're going." And I think that goes back to Graham Neff. And I think this was in the audio that we played for you with Neff either yesterday or the day before. Graham Neff said, look, he was talking about the old hockey saying. He's talking about Wayne Gretzky and tracking the puck. And, you may not know the direction that the puck is going to go after it ricochets off the wall, but you want to make sure you're skating in the right direction. You want to make sure that you're giving everything you can to put yourself in position to be successful. And I think that's exactly what Pat Fitzgerald wants to know. He wants some guidelines that say, look, this is how it's got to be. And again, I think part of this that's bad is, how do you make sure that everything is above reproach? How do you make sure? I don't think you really can at this point. And you might not be able to, even if you had like an instruction guide as thick as War and Peace. You might not be able to identify, what's gone on or what's gone wrong in recruiting processes for players and other people, and how it's done, I guess, maybe more so the thing. But I mean, that's just kind of where you are. That's what these guys are living in. They are living in a world where there are very few guidelines. If you are at the top of this sport, it is dog eat dog to stay on top. And yet the general rulings on what can and can't be done are not just inherently vague, but they really don't even exist to the point where you could go and pick up a copy and say, oh, okay, yep, that's clearly this, that's clearly that. I mean, it's just a lot left to be figured out by the coaches, and I think that's what's bothered a lot of these guys. 803-450-0086. The other thing, too, that I think you're going to continue to see, and ESPN's article had mentioned this, Caleb Williams being a freshman All-American, and the quarterback, you go and you're sort of the face or the new face of Oklahoma football, only to pack it up and leave to go to Southern Cal. And most people don't think he's going to be the last quarterback to do it. As a matter of fact, a lot of people believe that quarterbacks might become some of the most significant players that leave and go somewhere else, whether it comes down to the weather, whether it comes down to the team around you, finding a team with a great offensive line and running back group. I mean, all of those things could come into play for these individuals who are trying to find a place where they can be super successful and hopefully benefit by getting to the NFL. And that is where they'll make the real money. But in between their high school days and the college and their pro careers, potentially, I think we've got to figure out how to make sure that everything is still on the up and up, even if NIL is going to continue to exist. 803-450-0086. Trouble on the plains of Auburn. We'll get into that right here on the show that shakes the Southland next. Well, trouble on the plains of Auburn, and it's been a weird offseason already for Brian Harsin and the Auburn Tigers, and who knows, there's a chance that he may not even be there by the time the season kicks up. So if I can try to recap everything that's taken place. So Harsin fired offensive coordinator Mike Bobo following the regular season. Bobo's now back at Georgia. Defensive coordinator Derek Mason left the program. He was initially looking, I think, at Maryland, ends up taking the defensive coordinator job at Oklahoma State. Bobo's successor, former Seattle Seahawks assistant Austin Davis, comes in and resigned for personal reasons earlier this week after being hired in Auburn for just 6 weeks. But there are a lot of questions about Brian Harsin and a situation potentially a situation where people are talking about possibly an inappropriate relationship. Additionally, defensive line coach Nick Eason left and headed to Clemson. Quarterback Bo Nix transferred out and went to Oregon. And then you've got the news that there are players coming out and saying that they were treated so poorly under Brian Harsin. Smoke Monday, an NFL draft prospect, said since Brian Harsin got hired, he never had one conversation with my mom or dad. He probably don't even know their name. As a coach, how can you explain that? So there are tons of people critical of Brian Harsin right now. Auburn fans initially, a lot of them wanted Kevin Steele hired. And I know what Clemson Tiger fans are like, what? And there is a feeling that when Steele was in the interim capacity prior to the hiring of Harsin, that a lot of people were really rooting for Kevin Steele. And so now when you look at the situation, Auburn, who has won a national title back in 2010 with Cam Newton, Auburn, who played for a national title in 2013 under Gus Malzahn, and they fired Gene Chizik in 2012 after winning a title. The school owed nearly $21.5 million to Gus Malzahn after they fired him after the Tigers went 6-4. Malzahn, of course, coaching now at UCF. But it's just crazy because this is a school, and yeah, I think they have a lot of pressure to be successful for multiple reasons, most notably the fact that they are in the same state as Alabama. They're rivals. And they have played very well against Alabama recently. I mean, that's been one of the things that Auburn has done that probably would surprise most people is when you look back and to see how well they've done against Alabama while the Crimson Tide have been, sharp as a tack, so to speak. But even still, there's just so much frustration there. This is a group, by the way, you may recall, 1993, under Terry Bowden, they went 11-0, but they were ineligible to win the national title. The following year, they went 9-1-1. They were still ineligible for bowl postseason play. Things end up getting changed over down the road to Tommy Tuberville in 1999. Tuberville takes them to a 13-0 record, an undefeated 2004 season, but they finished second in the country that year outside of the BCS back in 2004. Gene Chizik leads them to a national title in 2010 when they went 14-0, knocking off Oregon in the championship game. And then, as I mentioned, Gus Malzahn, who many people credited with that 2010 title, returned just 3 years later after a 3-9 year where Chizik's fired. He comes in year one, makes Auburn. They were 12-2, losing in the national championship, won the SEC, and I'm sure in that moment that Auburn Tiger fans were like, "War Eagle, we got our guy. We're gonna win. We're gonna." They probably thought in that moment they were about to become the elite team, maybe one of the elite teams in college football. I mean, Malzahn was the catalyst to the title in 2010 in a lot of people's minds when they went 14-0. His return, they go 12-2, win the SEC, play for the national title, and get beat late by Florida State, Kelvin Benjamin, in the waning moments of that game, or else he does win a title. And Auburn would have won 2 titles in 4 years. Instead, following that, they finished 4th in the league, go 8-5, 7th in the league at 7-6, 3rd in the league at 8-5. They did win the West in 2017, finished the year 10-4. 2018, 8-5, 2019, 9-4, and 2020 under Gus Malzahn, they were 6-5. So a significant drop-off, no doubt. But this situation with Brian Harsin and the potential off-the-field stuff, too, is swirling around this program. Can you imagine if Auburn indeed has to make another change? That would mean this would be the 4th head coach at Auburn since Dabo Swinney took over at Clemson. That's right. They may be picking up their 4th head coach since Dabo Swinney took over in Tigertown. Harsin is out of the country on vacation, according to reports, and has not had conversations with any Auburn leaders, according to ESPN. Quote, Auburn president said, "There have been a lot of rumors and speculation about our football program. I just want you to know we're trying to separate fact from fiction. We'll keep you posted and make the appropriate decision at the right time." Will Harsin make it to year 2? Keep your eyes towards the plains, ladies and gentlemen. We'll find out soon, I'm sure. With a break, stay with us. The show that shakes the Southland Clemson Sports Talk, Lawton Swan with you. During the break, I was eyeballing some of the things that have come out about Coach Harsin there at Auburn. And again, there have been some players that have supported him, some players who have not. But, man, some of the stuff that some of the players have said to the negative side of things, I mean, it's rough. Like one guy basically saying, "Hey, you kind of treat us like dogs." I think I've got that one here. Lee Hunter said, "Auburn is a special place and always will be. I'm still in true Auburn made man, War Eagle forever. I always loved Auburn since a kid. To my old teammates, I love you and learned a lot from you guys. Be great no matter what the reason. I chose to leave Auburn because we got treated like we wasn't good enough and like dogs." He went on to say, "I love you, Auburn and Nation, War Eagle forever. Coach Harsin has the true mindset for a winner, but has a terrible mindset as a person." And so you do have some players coming out in support, other players coming out to the negative. It will be, I think, very interesting to see where this goes. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Auburn's athletic director or president saying, they will make the decision at the appropriate time. Brian Harsin told ESPN, "I didn't come here to fail." I mean, I just can't understand or figure out where it's going, but man, it really, really feels like it's a tough situation for the folks on the plains at this point. And if the allegations about, potentially inappropriate relationship come forward, then I can't see a way he survives it, right? I mean, that seems to have always been the way these things end. Sticking in the state of Alabama for a minute, Alabama defensive coordinator Pete Golding was arrested and charged with driving under the influence by Alabama North Point police on Thursday morning. North Point Police Chief Keith Carpenter confirmed the arrest, which he said took place around 1 a.m. Alabama officials are aware and are still gathering the information. This actually came out, I guess, at some point yesterday afternoon. I had it in my notes, but we didn't get to it. Golding said in a statement, "I am deeply sorry for the actions that led to my arrest last night. I sincerely apologize to my family, everyone in our organization, including our players, Coach Saban, the staff, the University of Alabama, and our fans." Golding is a Louisiana native and is a huge part of Alabama's recruiting staff. And, of course, the Crimson Tide continue to be, by most accounts, one of the favorites next year. His arrest came just a day after Auburn secured the second-ranked signing class in the country. So, again, in the state of Alabama right now, for Golding, not great. And how do you want a coach to handle a situation like that? I mean, it's a fireable offense, I think. Look, I'm no litigator by any means, and I'm sure that you can probably go to court if you've never had any other offense, any other DUI offenses, and probably get this thing stricken from the record. You can probably do some kind of PTI or who knows what. But if you are an Alabama fan, I mean, what's the thought process behind a situation like that? Because if you did fire him, if you did get rid of him because of it, I don't know that there will be a whole lot of backlash. There's probably more backlash if you actually keep him. Mothers Against Drunk Driving, all of the different firms that, come out against driving under the influence. But you do wonder, Nick Saban, he's had so much staff turnover through the years. Golding's been a part of Nick Saban's staff since 2018 and was promoted to defensive coordinator in 2019. Is that a fireable offense? At some jobs, it absolutely is. Is it if you're the defensive coordinator at a major college football program? Do coaches get away with it? I mean, I'm trying to think when's the last time I think about a coach who got arrested for DUI, and did that guy get to keep his job? I really, like the head coach, I'm bouncing my head around like the country for DUI head coaches. I can't think of any right off the cuff. I do think it's something to consider for sure, and it's not as if Alabama would be without options or opportunities to bring people in to be the DC. That's 100% a fact. 803-450-0086. 803-450-0086. You know what? Let's stay out in the SEC West for one final topic. Did you see the video of Brian Kelly a couple of days ago dancing with a recruit? I mean, it was awful for a couple of reasons. One, clearly Brian Kelly did not know where the camera was, and two, clearly Brian Kelly does not have much rhythm. But it turns out that the player in that video, tight end Danny Lewis, ultimately ended up signing with Alabama. If you're going to dance with a recruit, if you're going to look foolish the way Brian Kelly did, you at least got to land the fish. Come on, Brian Kelly, with your fake Southern accent. You got to get it together, buddy. Your dance steps are horrendous. Not as bad as your Southern accent, but horrendous nonetheless. As we head towards the top of the hour, stay with us. Final segment of hour number one, the show that shakes the Southland, Clemson Sports Talk. Lawton Swan with you here on a Friday afternoon. Again, the Clemson Tiger men's basketball team with a weekend matchup on the road at Georgia Tech. I guarantee you this: now that you have lost Hunter Tyson, the impact that Chase Hunter, in my estimation, has to have on this ball club is through the roof. I think he'll garner probably more playing time, even though I know those two guys don't play the same spot. Obviously, Naz Bohannon's game is going to have to be improved. But Clemson loses a significant weapon in Hunter Tyson. It's not a great basketball team as it is. They're good, not great. And sometimes they're not even good. But minus Hunter Tyson, you got to get a lot more out of everybody on the court. But I think specifically Chase Hunter and Naz Bohannon. And, going into Georgia Tech for that 2 o'clock matchup tomorrow at McCamish Pavilion, ahead of a 3-game stretch featuring North Carolina, Duke, and Notre Dame, all home games at Littlejohn. This feels like a must-win, or you might waltz into a 4-game losing streak, maybe more. But in order to beat Georgia Tech even, you're still going to have those guys play very well. Minus one of your stars. Again, that's a 2 o'clock start on a regional sports network tomorrow in Atlanta. I mean, when you look at the ACC men's basketball standings, I talked about the fact the other day that you only had one team from the league in the AP Top 25, and that was the Duke Blue Devils. But as far as the basketball standings go, I mean, for Clemson at this point, there's not a lot of wiggle room. The Tigers are below 500. I mean, you know that at 4-6 in the league, but they're also in the bottom half of the league as it pertains to wins and losses. And the Yellow Jackets are 2-8 in conference play, 9-12 overall. They're not a great basketball team. And this is the type game that Brad Brownell, as much as he's found a way at times to beat top-tier teams in the league, this is the type game that Clemson goes in and blows a tire, and you walk out of there 4-7, scratching your head saying, how in the world did we play down to this opponent? And again, with the looming matchups against Duke, North Carolina, and Notre Dame, 3 of the top 4 teams in the league, you cannot lose this ball game tomorrow. I'm going to tell you, if Clemson goes into Georgia Tech, even minus Hunter Tyson, Hunter Tyson, and I know they got to get some other guys to step up. That's a team Clemson should still beat either way. And if you lose that game, I don't really know what to tell you. I know you'll have an excuse to fall back on because you didn't have one of your star players. But, buddy, you got to be ready to roll when you've got 3 of the top 4 teams coming up in the next 3 games, all at home, granted, all at home. And if I really know Brad Brownell, here's what will happen. They'll get beat by Georgia Tech. And then somehow he'll end up finding a way to win 2 of the 3 against North Carolina, Duke, and Notre Dame. And you'll go, what happened? How do we lose to Georgia Tech? Like, that'll be Clemson fans. How did we lose to Georgia Tech? I mean, that is a story I feel like I have written 1,000 times during Brad Brownell's tenure. Losing to teams that you should beat and beating teams you should lose to. I don't know what's more disappointing. The actual loss to a team you shouldn't beat, or looking back and recognizing how much you've left off the table or on the table, whatever the term would be in that scenario, how much you've left out there by virtue of not being able to win those games. I mean, that's the frustrating part for me. Clemson is a team that never has any leeway when it comes down to college basketball, yet Clemson consistently digs themselves in a hole. And if at 4 o'clock-ish, when that game concludes tomorrow from Atlanta, if Clemson loses, I will not be shocked in the least, because that's been the nature of this tenure. And if over the next couple of weeks, when they line up against the top 3 teams or 3 of the top 4 teams in the league, Clemson wins a couple of those, I would not be shocked in the least, because that's the way this tenure has gone. Brad Brownell does just enough to get talked about being fired and just enough to keep from being fired. And that's his balance. That's the balancing act. But for me, you got to go out and get that win tomorrow, just from a confidence standpoint. And then you only have to win one of those 3 games against Duke, North Carolina, and Notre Dame, and you're 500 out of those 4 ball games. Which, given the results that those teams have had this year, why not? One advantage Clemson could have, I guess, North Carolina in that matchup against the Tar Heels, they are 3-3 on the road. 500 on the road. Maybe Clemson can clip them in Little John. All right, hour number 2 coming up. Clemson Tom joins the program, the voice of the fans here on the show, as we find out what's going through his mind as we head into the weekend, plus much more. Stay with us.
It's time for Clemson Sports Talk with Lawton Swan.
Ready, set! Just call me Swanee.
Tiger style. Tiger style.
It is hour number 2. That's drive time right here on the show. This shakes the Southland Clemson Sports Talk. Lawton Swan with you, Clemson Tom, getting set to join the program. We've talked a lot today about the Auburn Tigers and the situation on the Plains. You know, I started thinking, I mentioned Texas A&M earlier as well. Those are 2 teams when I was a kid growing up, I would have probably rooted for a little bit. You know, grew up a Clemson Tiger fan, but had family back in Texas, several cousins who graduated from Texas A&M, and even before then, I still kind of liked those guys. I thought the 12th man tradition was cool. And then there was that connection between Clemson and Auburn that I always kind of liked, and Auburn didn't feel like a bad guy, so I would kind of root for them a little bit too. Who's the other team that you kind of rooted for growing up? Maybe you don't root for them now. Maybe you don't even care now. Who are some of those other teams? 803-450-0086. You know, Clemson Tom's a man that doesn't like a whole lot of teams. It seems like he's a Tiger and a Tiger alone. But Tom, give us an idea. Who were some of the teams that you followed when you were growing up? Or has it always just been all in all the time?
Definitely been all in, but growing up, it'd have to be the Gators. Being down here in Florida, I actually went to a lot of Florida home games with a friend of mine. His grandpa was like a big-time booster, and we'd go up to Gainesville on the weekends and go see the Gators. So, even now, I married a Gator. I don't dislike them. They're an easy team for me to root for. Same rivals, similar colors. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I might have like 2 Gator shirts in my closet. Take that away. I got one. I just threw one away. We did the cleaning of the shirts you don't wear anymore. So yeah, other than that, I had some friends play for the Hurricanes there for a little bit out of high school. So I rooted for them, not necessarily the team, even though the Canes were fun to watch in like 01 because they were just so good. Never Florida State. I've always hated them with a passion. But yeah, Clemson, if I could get them on TV back in the day, and a little bit of the Gators.
How about now that you've gotten older? You mentioned Florida. Is there a team sort of out of the Southeast, maybe out west, Midwest, because I think there was a time even where, for me, Oregon was kind of interesting because of their crazy uniforms and sort of the style of football they were playing when Chip Kelly was there. I mean, is there another like there are programs I'm never going to like, right? Like I'm never going to like Ohio State. That's just built into.
You can't.
But are there some other teams now that you if they're playing, you'll say, you know what, I'm going to sit down and watch them because I kind of like this team.
Yeah, and I have a cousin that plays defensive end for South Dakota State University, so I'll watch them obviously just for him. But I don't really have that team that's on. I'll watch them. But kind of like you, if there's like I would watch Boise State back in the day when they were really good, just because they were fun. Oregon, if they were on, I used to watch them just kind of with you. The crazy uniforms are kind of fun to watch. But there's no team right now that I can say like, oh man, they're playing, I gotta watch them. But that typically changes. I don't know. I would say probably every few years, you got that one team that's got somebody good like USC when they had Rich Bush, Leinart, and Lindell White. Like you'd want to watch them because they were fun to watch, man. They were really good. But as of right now, it's just in my house. It's just Clemson, unless there's a Thursday night game on. But I'm not really dying to watch anybody else.
Tom, the news potentially out of Auburn with Brian Harsin, the head coach, 1 year under his belt. Players have left the program. Coaches have left the program. There's speculation that there might be an issue with an inappropriate relationship. No factual evidence on that, just rumors and innuendo. But it is a program that won a national title under Gene Chizik back in 2010, hired Gus Malzahn, played for a national title in Malzahn's first year there. But if this thing falls off the rails with Harsin, they would be having their 4th head coach since Dabo Swinney took over at Clemson. I mean, that seems fairly significant to me. I don't live on the plains, but what is your take of what you've seen out of Auburn?
Oh man, well, one of the players came out saying that the coach treats the players like dogs. I think that's an actual. You can quote me on that. I'm pretty sure he said coach.
Yeah, he did. He said dogs. Yep.
Yeah. So that's never good. And the whole inappropriate relationship thing, I can't speak on it only because I'm reading everything you're reading, man. Everyone says allegations. I know his wife came out saying it was false. Me being me, you got to see who he allegedly cheated on his wife with. She's a knockout, in my opinion. But that's neither here nor there. She came from Boise State, where he came from. I'm not saying he did. I'm not saying he didn't. But I do find it interesting that when Alabama has some controversy, randomly Auburn has some controversy. And I'm not saying Alabama started the rumor. I'm just saying it came at a real good time for Alabama. So that's about it for me. But the man, he's married, he's got kids. So I mean, that's like whatever. It'll play out. But Auburn wishes that they were Alabama. They for some reason I feel like they're always trying to keep up with the Joneses. They got busted with Cam Newton's checks, and they keep trying to be a top tier program. I would say they're more of a middle tier program. Like if we played Auburn, I'm not nervous. I'm like, all right, we should win this. Now I'd be nervous playing Texas A&M, be nervous playing Alabama, obviously. But I would put them in my scale, like up there, like Ole Miss. Okay, they're decent, but we should win. Nothing crazy. But I always feel like they're always trying to keep up with Bama.
Tom, you brought up A&M. I played the audio of Jimbo Fisher yesterday, so frustrated Actually, I guess the audio was from 2 days ago, but so frustrated with the conversations about whether or not things were on the up and up with their recruiting class, which may be one of the best recruiting classes in the history of college football. Your thoughts on whether or not Jimbo Fisher, because this is my thing. Like I said this, like I would trust the A&M fan base more than I would trust Jimbo Fisher.
Yeah, I don't trust Jimbo either. Just knowing some things behind the scenes, man, he can be a little shady. And are they paying the players? Yeah, they are. It's the NIL. They're getting away with it like they can. I don't think they're doing anything illegal because as of now, to pay a player, that's pretty much legal. Yeah, to do it illegally, you have to flat out not know what you're doing. You just got to own a business and be like, yeah, he's sponsoring my welding company. Here's $500,000. You know, and Texas A&M has the Texas money, so it is what it is. And did it work out for him? Sure, but I was even talking about this yesterday with a good buddy of mine. Like the whole thing of college football is changing. I think you and I even spoke on it a few weeks ago. It's weird, man. It doesn't feel like college football. Everyone's kind of going to where they want to go strictly based off money. And I'm all about them, using their a lot like free agents. The big schools and the little schools not really do much. And it's technically, man, it's not really fair. But I don't know. They're going to end up regulating this as always.
Okay, Tom. So I do have a question on that. But by the way, follow Clemson Tom on Twitter at Clemson Tom. So one thing I saw somebody read or somebody tweeted, and it made a lot of sense to me. They said what you're going to see is these players from A&M, a lot of them, I don't know how many of these top recruits in the transfer portal next year or the following year, because they believe that the design of the deal is simply to lure players as freshmen and then take that NIL money and move it to the next recruiting class, right? So the freshmen come in and get that bump year one, and then if they, go out and earn their own deals later, that's fine, but sort of a, hey, up front kind of thing. I know that's not how it's supposed to be done, but do you think that that's what we could potentially see, a situation where a lot of these players that are at A&M leave next year if the NIL money dries up and ends up into the hands of 5 stars in the 2023 class?
Yeah, that's 100%. That was part of what I was talking to my buddy about. Like, are they going to get this every year? Is it just a one-time thing? Let's say you go in there and you're a decent quarterback, you have a good freshman year, and you're getting $500,000, and you're lighting it up. Next thing you know, you've got an Oregon booster that's like, yo, I'll give you 1.5. Why don't you go put on the green and yellow? And then you say something to A&M like, hey man, Oregon wants me to transfer. They're gonna basically double, triple my money, whatever. And Texas A&M's like, sorry, I got to give it to this cat out of wherever, USA, and we're gonna give him $500,000. So we can't do it to you. So they get the transfer. They can start day one, and now you got a kid bouncing around college football for 3 years, just cashing checks. I mean, so is that we're literally talking about this? Well, this could be a reality, and no one could bat an eye about it.
Well, the good news is they can only do the transfer once freely. If they transfer twice, they do have to sit out a year. But yes, I agree. For the first time around, you could definitely see it.
Yeah, but it's doable for them.
Clemson Tom again is on Twitter Go ahead.
The whole thing's just crazy. Like I feel like we've opened up the floodgates for the shadiness that was always there in college football is just out in the open now. And like, when does it stop?
Well, and there's
no salary.
I said now we're number one. I think the other thing this does allow now. So in the old system, if a player was getting handed money, right? Like let's say some defensive lineman was getting money from somewhere, you would know because they might have a nicer car than everybody, or they might have more money to spend. Now you don't know. So even the dirty money is sort of masked by the clean money. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, it's a lot like speaking of the Florida Gators. It's all like what Urban Meyer did. He had players fighting coaches. He had a tight end killing people. He had all these bad players on his team, but hey, don't worry about it. We got Tim Tebow over here kneeling before games, and he's got Bible verses written on his face. Everything's getting masked behind the good. So yeah, I mean, you've got ABC, whatever, giving a guy X amount of dollars, but hey, this booster over here is going to give you some money under the table, and we're just not going to talk about that because, Milo's sweet tea actually is the one that's giving you a little bit of money too. So it's kind of the same thing. It's not necessarily a bait and switch, but it's more like a switch to bait. I don't know, something like that. But yeah, it's definitely masking the runners and the scouts or not the scouts, the agents that are there. I even talked to a girl that works for an agent, and it's constantly behind the scenes with video games. Like you'll have, let's say Xbox comes out with some new race car game. I don't know, for story's sake. They will pay this guy a few $1 million just to go online and play it live so people can follow and just watch how this guy plays. $1 million just to play a video game live on TV or however they do it, and they upload it to YouTube or something like that.
Right. You can stream it live. Yeah, you can stream it. I can catch up on all the. Yeah, I'm a Fortnite guy, Tom. I play Fortnite a couple times a week.
Yeah, but I mean, who's to say? Yeah, I know you got the old man crew on Tuesdays.
Yeah. How do you know about that? Have I told you about the old man squad?
Because you tried to get me to join your Fortnite group, man.
It's the old man squad, Tom, not the old man crew.
Yeah, but same thing. But listen, you tried to recruit me. The NIL money wasn't there for me to come on board, so I had to decline you. That's all it was.
It's a fair point, Tom. That is a fair point. All right, so couple of quick things for you. We'll get you out of here. Super Bowl, it's not this coming Sunday, but Joe Burrow and the Bengals going into Kansas City and coming away with the victory last weekend. T. Higgins over 100 yards receiving. Do you give them a decent shot at all at beating this incredibly talented, defensive-minded Los Angeles Rams team?
Oh, man. I'm so going to be rooting for the Bengals. Do we have any Tigers on the Rams?
One, Tremaine Ankrum. Offensive line.
Yeah, I forgot about him. I mean, either way, I guess the Tigers win in the Super Bowl, but I'm rooting for the Bengals just because of even though he beat us, I like Joe Burrow. I like his story. And then all of a sudden we got 3 Tigers playing on the Bengals, and also horrible. I think they had 3 or 4 good seasons in the '80s, which is a lifetime ago when it comes to sports. But they've been so bad for so long. You kind of want them just to win, but it's the year of folks, and that's why I think the Rams win it. The quarterback went to Georgia. I think that'd be a cool story for all the Georgia fans. They win a natty, then their old quarterback wins the Super Bowl. So it'd be kind of cool. But I'm going to be rooting for Cynthia for sure.
What's wild is that there have only been 2 quarterbacks in the history of the NFL that have won a college national title and a Super Bowl title. That's nuts. Joe Montana and Joe Namath. And this would be Joe Brady. This would be the 3rd Joe to do it. Nobody else has done that. Isn't that nuts?
But it's kind of weird, man. Or just an odd stat as well.
Like Cam Newton won an NCAA, didn't win the Super Bowl. I mean, you go through the list.
Yeah. Man, that's wild. I never even thought about that.
Only 2 guys have ever won both at quarterback.
Did Joe Burrow win a state championship in high school?
Now listen to this guy. Tom, throw that in your Google machine when you get home from the commute. That's a good stat. All 3 levels. Did Joe Montana? Did Joe Namath?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Assume so. You would think You would think Joe Montana won the high school state championship, though, man.
I don't even know where he grew up.
Joe, I thought he was a Pittsburgh guy, wasn't he?
I couldn't throw up.
He's a Philadelphia, he's a Pennsylvania guy.
Oh, come on, Joe Montana.
He's like outside of Pittsburgh. Google it.
There's a town. There's a town named Joe Montana. He's from New Eagle, Pennsylvania. Look at you, Tom. 1,000 points.
I knew he was a Pennsylvania guy. Yeah, I knew he was a PA guy.
Okay, well, how about Joe Namath? Where's he from then, smart guy?
Joe Namath is he's a Yankee.
He's from Pennsylvania
he's
too.
Also a Pennsylvania guy.
He's from Pennsylvania.
He's also a Pennsylvania guy. Yeah.
If Joe Burrow is also from Pennsylvania, I'm just hanging up the phone on you.
No, Joe Burrow grew up in Ohio,
which is basically Pennsylvania South, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was actually born in Ames, Iowa.
In Ames, Iowa. He was born in Ames, Iowa.
Yeah. Home of the Iowa State Cyclones.
Yes, I'm well aware. I got a chance to watch them play football not too long ago.
Was his dad a coach? I think his dad was a coach. His dad was probably a coach there, honestly.
I thought Burrow was from Ohio. He's from Iowa?
He grew up no. He grew up in Ohio. His dad, Jim, was a coach at Iowa State, a defensive backs coach. Jim Burrow.
Oh, okay.
That's what happens when you throw it in your Google machine, people. Well, Tom, we didn't even get to discuss my favorite golfer, who, by the way, I think finished fourth in his last tournament. Congrats to the big man.
He got his first eagle, brother. Got his first eagle, par 5.
Caw-caw.
310 yards. Yeah, Greenwood faithful right there.
Let's go.
310 yards. After the driver, hit it with his 9-iron. Put it right on the green, about 3-4 feet away from the hole. Sunk it in for eagle. Placed fourth. We had a bad last 3 holes. Weather was a huge factor.
Yeah.
But he's still in the top 5 for the tour, so he's looking good there. We're heading to St. Mary's, Georgia.
Well, Tom, buddy, be good. We got to hit a quick break. We'll come back with more right after this. On a rainy Friday afternoon, the show that shakes the Southland, Clemson Sports Talk. We are on Twitter at Clemson Sports. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Not only do you get all the coaches' comments and stuff after the games, but also our commentary in this show. I put a poll up on my personal Facebook page yesterday. I don't even know if I've ever done this in the little stories deal. And so what happened is I use the McDonald's app for my phone. This is not a plug for McDonald's, but I do use their app. And it's quite convenient for a couple of reasons. One, you don't have to sit in the line at the restaurant. And there's some downside to it. I'll give you the downside here in a minute. But, well, I'll give you the downside now so we can just get to the conversation. One of the downsides is one day I ordered from home because my wife was out running around and she was going to pick up the food for the kids and stuff while she was out. But your actual phone has to be there. So then I had to go get in the car and drive over and pick it up. That's kind of a pain. But with that being said, I opened the app last night for some reason. I don't even know why. Oh, I know. My wife was stopping to grab my daughter something to eat. And she said, "Do you want anything?" And I just was going to get like a hamburger. I wouldn't get anything big, just a hamburger. But then I was like, you know what? Let me look at a Big Mac. Because I'm kind of a Big Mac eater, but I don't eat them often. And so I probably have not had a Big Mac in 8 months, maybe a year. So I thought, maybe I get a Big Mac. But then I didn't pump the brakes. I didn't. But when I opened the app, it had this surf and turf option, this app exclusive that came with a free Coke and fries called a menu hack. And it is a double cheeseburger combined with a fillet of fish. And so I put it on my page. I said, hey, how many of you would try this? Only 5 out of the people who voted said they would try it. So shout out to Lindsay, Josh, Kimberly, Shannon, and Will. They said they would try it. And I gotta say, look, I don't mind a fillet. I don't eat many filet of fishes. I don't mind a filet of fish. But I'm not sure that I could eat it all. I would try it, I think, but I don't think I could eat it all looking at it because of where they've got the pickles and everything placed on top. I would want it a little different order. I wanted a little bit more cheeseburger and then filet of fish separate. Instead, it's sort of this combined conglomeration. If that's even a thing. Can you combine a conglomeration, or is that from the Department of Redundancy department? Not certain on that front. Well, not from the Department of Redundancy department, but from the Double O department. Our good buddy Double O calling the program today. Double O, what's up, man?
Yo, Double O calling. Wanted to find out how long it takes for this to get on the air past weekend, and hey, that was no problem. So I'm just calling the show today, Lawton, to see exactly how live you are today is what's going on. And also would like to mention that Cincinnati Bengals, those Tigers is what I call them. They're Tigers. They're going to kick Rams' ass. All right, later.
Double O. Appreciate the call. 803-450-0086. And you can do the same thing. You want to leave us a message? We'll work you in. We can do that. Honestly, I wish we had more of those phone calls. And I know Double O is going to get on me. Listen, I know the studio thing's been taking a while to get set up the way I want it. And the double secret probation 10-second delay that I've got here in the office. But I got to tell you, I have had some debates with myself to just go back to the studio for a while so that we could take some phone calls. I've debated it, not lying, but at this point, really enjoying the opportunity to be at home a little bit more. So it's selfish in some respects and also for my family's sake. So I go back and forth, no doubt about that. 803-450-0086. 803-450-0086. Text line, phone line. Be a part of the program anytime, any place, anywhere. And we certainly appreciate Double O giving us a call. You know, he called us the other day and opened up with the old, was it Gomer Pyle? Was it Gomer Pyle that used to sound a little bit like this?
Well, surprise, surprise, surprise.
Wasn't that Gomer Pyle? I got that message from Double O last week, and I was like, man, that is spectacular. Surprise, surprise, surprise.
Well, surprise, surprise, surprise.
Put that in the coffers. Save that one for the long haul, Double O. Anytime I've got some breaking news. This just into the CST studios.
Well, surprise, surprise, surprise.
And then get into some grand story. 803-450-0086. Text line, phone line, couple of text messages to get to as well here on a Friday afternoon. Jim Harbaugh, by the way, speaking of news on a Friday afternoon, he interviewed with the Vikings, but he is going to stay collegiately at Michigan. He's going to stay at his alma mater and continue to coach there. So we shall see how it all shakes out for him. Again, I think there are some people probably in the Michigan family, even though they made a run to the college football playoff, that may have been hopeful that he was actually going to leave the program. But nonetheless, he decided, despite interviewing with the Vikings on Wednesday, that he will be returning to the Wolverines. Harbaugh told athletic director Ward Manuel that this would not be a recurring issue, and he will be staying as Michigan as long as the school wants him. So that's the news out of Ann Arbor. Also have a text message in, says, Brad B needs you on the team, my fearless leader. I love Brad Brownell. Go see you basketball. A joke. Please. So I think that may be coming in from Double O as well. 803-450-00. There it is. Said it for you. 00, not 00, 0086. We'll hit a quick break. We'll come back with more of the show that shakes the Southland. It is Clemson Sports Talk on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Rolling along on a Friday, the show that shakes the Southland, Clemson Sports Talk, Lawton Swan. Again, it's a weird weekend. The NFL in the midst of their bye week. You've got the Pro Bowl coming up. You got the Senior Bowl collegiately coming up. But after the past few weeks with the NFL and how great those games are, man, is it sort of a doldrum as it just feels like the wind has been let out of our sails as we head into the first weekend in February. Again, tomorrow at noon on a regional sports network, your Clemson Tigers will take on the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets in what I think is a must-win ball game for Clemson, given the upcoming games that they've got against Duke, North Carolina, and Notre Dame, three of the top four teams in the ACC. Staying in the world of college football, however, here on the program, North Carolina State apparently working on an extension for your favorite head coach, not named Dabo Swinney, Dave Doran. That's right, Dave Doran, according to Boo Corrigan, the athletic director at North Carolina and the new mouthpiece for the college football playoff. Corrigan says, I really like what Dave's done going into his 10th year here and the way he's grown the program. I'd be really happy to have him here for a long time. During the second longest tenured coach in the ACC, behind Dabo Swinney, is the 8th longest tenured coach amongst Power 5 programs. Of course, the Wolfpack were 9-3 a year ago, coming up just short of the Atlantic Coast Conference Championship, but did defeat the Tigers and return the majority of their starters on offense and defense heading into this season. Some people think they might not only be a top 10 program out of the gates, but may end up being the preseason favorite to win the Atlantic Coast Conference. And I don't have it in front of me, but I would imagine the last time Clemson wasn't the favorite to win the Atlantic Coast Conference was probably 2014, maybe 2015. So, yeah, I mean, quite frankly, that's a testament to the job he has done to at least be considered to be better than the Tigers out of the gate, which has not been the case for any team in the league in a long time. Clemson's been so dominant. 803-450-0086, text line, phone line. Again, you can be a part of the program anytime, any place, anywhere, and we always appreciate those of you that give us a text message to spend a little time out of your day hanging out with us. I was saying yesterday that I wanted to get Clemson Larry to become a podcast listener when he missed the show. Larry says that's not his thing. I'm going to get him to come around one way or another. But Nick chimes in and says it is definitely a great podcast. So, Nick, thank you, buddy. Nick's listening to us down in Statesboro, Georgia. Always appreciate everybody for giving us some insight. And Double O continues to send text messages to the program as we speak. So they're still rolling in. 803-450-0086. Text line, phone line. That's the way for you to be a part of it. And we do, man. We do try to have a good time here on the show. One of the things that I'm actually really excited about, didn't get a chance to mention too much about this earlier, but or even earlier this week, but the Clemson Tigers softball program getting back out there on the bump and on the circle. And Valerie Cagle, who is a preseason first-team All-American. She is an incredible pitcher. She is a fantastic batter. She is essentially the heart and soul of this Clemson Tiger softball team at this point. But they are fun to watch. And this goes back to my argument about the NBA earlier this week, my argument about Major League Baseball earlier this week, and baseball in general. Softball is a great sport for a couple of reasons. One, the games are going to move quickly. Two, You also know that the games are shorter. And 3, I think the fact that the season isn't nearly as long as some of these other seasons that go on just adds to the quality. Less is more. Less is more. And that facility, the dedication that Clemson's put into the softball program, I did not get to a game with my family last year. I don't know why. I don't know if it was COVID weirdness or whatever. We did not get to a softball game, but I am vowing before all of you, not as a media member who I'm going to go and get the free media pass and go watch the game. I'm going to put the money on the line. Woo! Like the Nature Boy Ric Flair. I've got shoes as worth as much as your house. What a great line, the Nature Boy, when he dropped that one back in the day. But we're gonna go to maybe a weekend, maybe go see 2 or 3 games. That's the other thing. They play a ton of games. They'll play like a 4-game set in a weekend. But with Valerie Cagle as the pitcher for this team, and how often they can recycle her game after game, man, I'll tell you what, I think this softball team is destined for big things. I don't know if this will be like a special magical year. I thought last year was for sure. But there is no doubt with her in the circle, you have a chance to win almost every game you play. I mean, that's how dominant she is. And I would almost venture to guess that if John Rittman coaches at Clemson another 10 years, I would venture to guess that she may be looked on 10 years from now as the best pitcher Clemson's ever had. Like, I think to be better than her, especially given what she does at the plate too, is going to be incredibly difficult. But I am absolutely excited about the opportunity to see this softball team this year. And I'm definitely taking the family up to a couple of games. 803-450-0086. I can feel the bow coming out. We're getting ready to tie the ribbon and put a wrap on the entire week. Stay with us.
What have you done for me lately? It's a fair question. Just don't lose sight of the bigger picture. Don't forget history. Lucky for us at Clemson, the answer to the questions, what have you done for me lately, and what have you done always, are the same. We win.
Final segment on a Friday afternoon. Lawton Swan with you. So before the break, I said going to put a wrap on the week. You guys remember our buddy Jonathan Reynolds used to host a show here at Fox Sports Radio, and also back when we were 560 The Team. Anyway, Jonathan, my show would follow his show back then, and I would always tell him, I was like, Jonathan, well, how come your name is Reynolds? At the end of your show, you should say, and I'm Jonathan Reynolds, that's a wrap. Your Reynolds wrap. And then I told him, and then you should contact these guys and get you a little money in your pocket. Get a little money in your pocket. I got a little change in my pocket going jing-a-ling-a-ling. That's for you, Double O. That's for you, Rob Sanders. You guys love when I sang. Final segment. I don't know where the day went, though, man. It's like, boom, goes to the dynamite, and it's over. I do have a confession to make here, and I can't believe I'm about to make this confession on the air. I started playing Wordle. I know I besmirched the game. I besmirched the players. But you know what happened? And this was even before. 7 days now I've been playing. This is before. It is a one puzzle a day thing. So it's not like you can't be like walking around going, oh, Swanny's hooked. He's playing all day. You get to play one puzzle a day. And it takes maybe 10 minutes at the most. But I will say that the reason I tried it was I got tired of seeing all these stupid green and yellow and black squares. I had no idea what people were doing. So then I decided, okay, I'll try it just to see. And then I tried it, and it was pretty fun. Now, I have not shared my results on my social media, not on my Twitter account, on my Clemson Sports Twitter account. Don't worry, I'm not gonna inundate you with that. I have put it on my Facebook once, and I have a text group that we text with every day just to hear how everybody does with it. But other than that, so I do want to apologize to the Wordle nerdles out there because I have kind of become a Wordle nerdle. And not to mention the fact that the guy who created it, his last name was Wardle, Wardle. So the Wardle, I can't even say it. Wordle started nerdles. There are a bunch of nerds out there doing it. And it's fun. Count me in as a nerd. NBC is sold out of their Super Bowl ads. I know because I gave them a call to try to get Clemson Sports Talk in the fold. I mean, for $5.5 million for 30 seconds or so, I figured, why not? I mean, maybe I can slide one in. You guys take a check? But yeah, according to reports, NBC has no more supply for the Super Bowl ads. And again, Cincinnati and Los Angeles, for the second year in a row, you're getting a team playing in their home stadium. The Los Angeles Rams playing in their home stadium, much like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers played in their home stadium a year ago. And finally, in the NFL, Doug Peterson, Super Bowl winning head coach with the Philadelphia Eagles, who ran the play. What was the play called? Clemson? Was that the play they ran? Is that just what they called it? Was it just Clemson in the Super Bowl? He has been named the new head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So a offensive mind heading to Jacksonville. I believe Doug Peterson had actually spoken at Clemson after winning the national title, if my memory serves me correctly on that front. I think at one point, when was Trevor was there, that was back in 2018. Doug Peterson actually came and spoke at Clemson, and now he will be Trevor Lawrence's head coach. But I was trying to look if that play was actually called just Clemson or Clemson Special. I can't remember from the Super Bowl what the name of that play was. Nonetheless, I think it's a positive for Trevor Lawrence for sure to have Doug Peterson there. I mean, the situation with Urban Meyer, that was a train wreck. I mean, that was just a disappointing thing for sure. 803-450-0086. All right. Taking some final moments here. Let's see if we've got anything else on the docket today that we can get to you before we get you out of here. It's like you got 1 minute, Swanee. Is there anything breaking that just came out because you want to get it in? Again, don't forget Clemson and Georgia Tech tomorrow, 2:00, in what feels like a must-win style ball game for the Tigers because of the upcoming contest against Duke, North Carolina, and Notre Dame. I don't see anything pressing, so we're going to hit the brakes on content. You want to hang out with us online, you can go to ClemsonSportsTalk.com. We'd love to have you there. And again, I cannot wait to be back live with you with the live video. Until Monday, as always, y'all take care now. And go Tigers!